2025 NFL Draft has come to a close. Which IDPs landed in primo spots for production in 2025? And which one should you be fading in rookie drafts? That and more this week on the IDP After Show.
This is the IDP After Show.
All right, welcome into the IDP After Show. I'm your guest host for today, Josh Raymer, joined by a guy who is sliding down our Canadian rankings faster than Shedeur Sanders is sliding down the draft board. It's PFF's own Jon Macri. Jon, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing good. I have the character concerns and off-field concerns and stuff. So it's understandable that, I'd be falling. But yeah, man, the Shedeur stuff has been crazy to follow. And yeah, obviously a lot coming out. I guess like interview process wise, like it just did not go well with him. So maybe the NFL trying to make an example of him a little bit, but ultimately ends up with the Browns anyways, which was weird. But yeah, other than that, I love the NFL draft and I'm excited to talk about it today. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. But and like your PFF colleague said, by week one, you will have risen back to the top of the heap as far as our favorite Canadians. So we have faith. We're going to trust the process. We're going to trust our coaches, trust our evaluation that you are the man for the job here to talk IDP landing spots, Jon. This is one of our favorite pods that we do each year. This year, it gets to be part of the after show feed. And so what we're going to do on this episode, pretty straightforward. We're going to go through, Jon, you've drummed up 5 winners or best landing spots, 3 guys who landed in suboptimal situations. So losers in terms of post-draft value. And then we'll do some quick hitters at the end. So yeah, man, if you are ready, let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And let's start right off the top with some guys who went first round and a guy at the top who the Atlanta Falcons gave up a haul to move up and get. And it's funny, Jon, because the conversation I've heard around James Pearce Jr. in the aftermath of the first round has been like, what bad process by the Falcons? What an overpay to move up. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're not grading the draft pick. We are looking at landing spots, and I am a big fan because the Falcons have needed edge rush juice for decades now, and they finally have it, double dipping in the first round with guys that can play on the edge. Why do you have James Pearce here as a best landing spot for IDP?
Yeah, so it's definitely not because I liked the Falcons process here. That was definitely not ideal, but they did show that they're invested in this guy at the very least, right? And I know that they took Jalen Walker first, but Jalen Walker, I don't think is necessarily someone that I'm trusting for IDP purposes just yet because of that kind of hybrid role where he's going to get kind of uneven work as an edge and an off-ball linebacker, likely going to be a lot more boom bust where, the best we can hope is kind of like a Caden Ellis light. Caden Ellis was great last year, but as long as he's still there, I'm not expecting Walker to go to that level of production, at least not in year one, because I think Ellis is a free agent at the end of this season. So maybe that's the succession plan there. But either way, Walker, a lot more raw, which he doesn't excel at anything just yet. Pearce, meanwhile, is one of the best pure pass rushers in this class. He was my edge 2 heading into the draft, and he's still there, I think, post-draft as well. You listen to these career metrics for Pearce, for anybody that's unfamiliar. He ranked 95th percentile career pass rush grade among edge rushers since 2016, 96th percentile career win rate, 99th percentile career pressure rate, 99th percentile career quick pressure rate. He scored a 9.10 in my edge prospect model. That puts him in the 98th percentile prospects there. Scoring a 9 or higher, which he does, gives him a 43% shot at top 12, 86% at top 24, and 86% at top 36 as well. So an ideal floor with a great shot to be an edge 1. And, 43% for top 12. That's including guys that also scored 9 or higher who haven't got there yet. Guys like Will Anderson, Aiden Hutchinson, Laiatu Latu, who I think all those guys are in play to be top 12s in the future as well. So James Pearce, he might start as more of a designated pass rusher. So that kind of tempers expectations a bit early on in his career, not dissimilar to like a Chop Robinson, for example, but he's arguably, I think, an even better prospect than Chop coming out. So I like the potential for him to get on the field quite a bit, become an impact pass rusher, something that like you said, Atlanta has desperately needed for a long time. They keep taking swings on these project guys outside of round one, and even with Jalen Walker this year as well. But Pearce is much closer to a finished product, so his path to IDP success should be much quicker.
Yeah. What do you make of the character concerns? We talked about that on our recap episode for the IDP show earlier this week. And I mean, some of the worst reports coming out about this guy is not coachable. It seems like the Falcons did their homework, and moving up the way they did, I think they're going to make this work. And like we said, I think it's hard for these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids to be in college football right now with the millions of dollars being thrown their way in NIL money, the temptation of the transfer portal, on top of everything else that comes with being a famous teenager, young adult, essentially. So that, I think, is my only real hesitation. I also have heard a little bit about this dude is more just like a straight line kind of speed rush, like, I don't want to say one trick pony, but he is not in that same class as some of the premier top shelf edge rushers that we have in the NFL. He's kind of a slender build speed guy. So you, I think, are willing to set those concerns aside because of the positives that you saw and the fact he lands in such a barren edge rushing room there in Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, like there's definitely some size concerns, at least as far as, being thick enough to kind of maybe play on those early downs, right? That's why I kind of compare him a little bit more to like a Chop Robinson, but something he can develop at for sure. And then, yeah, as far as pass rushing go, he's not like, Abdul Carter in this class or the Will Andersons, Aiden Hutchinson exactly, as far as being polished enough to kind of be on par with those guys, but definitely has the numbers and the metrics that put him in a similar spot and has the speed to kind of get there as well. So for this class, he's definitely one of the more polished pass rushers. Because there is a lot of guys who are more projects, maybe a couple that we'll talk about, but yeah. And then as far as character concerns go, like you said, I mean, the Falcons trading up what they did to get him, I think put a lot of those concerns aside, and it maybe not necessarily the case for one of the other players who we'll talk about in a little bit, who was a projected first round pick that dropped to the second round as well. But yeah, for Pearce, I still feel pretty confident in him, especially with this landing spot in Atlanta where he can be sorely needed there.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best and worst landing spots podcast, and this is, even if you have concerns or questions about the player, this was one of those rooms, kind of like the Rams linebacking room. I think we're going to touch on a quick hitter that just got drafted there. But in terms of shallow, soft rooms, this was one of the softest edge rushing rooms in the NFL, if not the softest. So I agree. I think James Pearce Jr. is a winner. And John, for each of these guys, because I know folks are going to be having rookie drafts starting here soon, I think some are already underway right now as the draft is going on. Because we were having this debate about where we could see James Pearce Jr. going in, let's say, 1 QB rookie drafts right now. Does he slot in third round, fourth round, fifth round? Is he going undrafted? Like, where in your kind of estimation do you think he'll end up in rookie drafts now?
Yeah, so I'm working through all of that right now. Like I'll have articles and stuff like that come out this week. But I think for me, where he's right kind of in that third round range, just because, again, I like the potential for success. Looking at his score in the model and stuff like that, I think he's going to be one of those guys that we can trust for IDP. So yeah, probably early third round. Yeah, that's about where I have it. If you're really big play scoring leagues, I think you can make a play for him late second round as well. Just again, first round capital as far as edge rushers go in this class. It's Abdul Carter and everyone else, but James Pearce fits in that everyone else where he is a little bit more effective as a pass rusher and could have that impact for us. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
This feels like a class outside of Abdul Carter where it's just like, pick your flavor.
Yeah.
Who do you like? Are you an Ezeiruaku guy? Are you a Mike Green guy? Shamar Stewart, James Pearce? I think there's going to be a wide discrepancy. Whereas last year, I think we had a pretty clear top three with Latu, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse. it feels like 1 through 5 for this year's class is going to be all over the place. So I like what you said, though. I think if you're breaking ties or looking for opportunity, year one, James Pearce Jr. landed in a good spot. Another guy, though, switching positions, John, lands in the potentially new Legion of Boom in Seattle. I know our boy Evan Ringler was fired up, not as much as he was fired up about Gray Zabel, who was crushing Bush Lights after getting selected in the first round by the Seahawks. But Nick Emmanwori lands with the Seattle Seahawks. This was a guy we commonly saw mocked in the first round. Malachi Starks, the only safety who goes round one. We see Emmanwori go near the top of the second round to the Seattle Seahawks. What did you make of this landing spot, John?
Yeah, I love Emmanwori's profile for IDP, a big, athletic, built for kind of that IDP production to thrive around the line of scrimmage, and getting the early second round capital. I know that we thought there was a good chance he could go round one, but still not a huge deal to go 35th overall. We get plenty of guys in the second round: Brian Branch, Antoine Winfield, Jaquan Brisker, Xavier McKinney, all those second round guys, and going to Seattle too, where it's kind of been Julian Love that has been kind of the safety to roster there for a while now. But I think Emmanwori can take over that role for us because he should come in and start right away. You never know. But I would have loved him in like a Commander's defense a little bit more, but I think this is still a really nice spot in Mike McDonald's defense. And as McDonald's kind of new Kyle Hamilton, where he can get him lining up all over the defense, rushing the passer, soaking up production, playing in the box, especially with a thinner linebacker core. I think that's important here, right? It's Ernest Jones, who should be our full-time option, and then Tyreek Knight, who they did not like to deploy in a full-time role last year. So Emmanwori could be the option on like those dime looks as well to play that LB2 role for them on passing downs or whenever they choose to take Knight off the field on top of his already starting safety duties. So with McDonald, obviously remembering Kyle Hamilton's rookie year where he wasn't a full-time player, like there's that risk there, but I don't think the Seahawks necessarily have those established options like Chuck Clark or Marcus Williams to mess around too much there. It's basically just Kobe Bryant, who had his moments for IDP last year, but also, a former fourth rounder who's really just a guy for NFL purposes. It's not impossible that they still roll with Kobe Bryant, but my money would still be on Emmanwori here, considering the profile, is considering the draft capital. Like if we have to wait a year, so be it. I'm still going to take him in rookie drafts as my safety one. So like Emmanwori quite a bit.
Yeah, it seems like the lane is cleared for Emmanwori. Like you said, not a lot of great competition there that should keep him off the field. Great draft capital. I mean, top 30. We get hung up on first round, and it's kind of an arbitrary designation because it's not even that all 32 teams get to pick. It's 32 picks because there's 32 teams, but 35, I mean, top 35, 40, I mean, that is a significant investment of draft capital. Just because these guys are not first round picks doesn't mean that is not significant capital, especially invested into a position that the NFL doesn't value at a premium and doesn't take a lot of in the first round. So I kind of look at that the same way that quarterbacks are moved up because it's a premium position, even if those guys don't deserve to go first round. In the same way, you kind of give a discount in the other direction of like, okay, safety, not a premium position. 35th really translates to probably like somewhere in the 20s if this was a position the NFL actually valued. So I like Emmanwori. I like the athleticism. A lot of comps to Jeremy Chin. And like you said, that ability to potentially spell some of the linebackers there in Seattle and play all over the formation. This is a guy I like a lot for redraft leagues as well. I think he could very well end up being a top 24 safety for us in 2025.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like if he is named the starter, then he's definitely in play as one of the top just 2025 redraft safeties as well. Because there's all that potential, like you said, to play around the line of scrimmage and soak up a lot of that production there. So definitely excited about that. And yeah, like you said, 35th overall, early second round. Like this is the list of other players that have gone in that range. It's Xavier McKinney, Jalen Petrie, Kyle Duggar, Grant Delpit, Antoine Winfield Jr., Brian Branch, Tyler Newbin, like all guys that have been really, really successful for IDP, all have been just inside that top 50 and outside the first round. So feel very good about him. And yeah, I'm with you. I don't think second round is, needs to be a drop off from the first round either, right? Like a Malachi Starks might get drafted as the first safety by a lot of people, but I would definitely still lean Emmanwori just because of the potential usage over what Starks will get.
Yeah, we were having that conversation with Malachi Starks versus Jedi Barron. Who are you most likely to take in rookie drafts? We all thought Starks would go earlier, but we liked Barron potentially in the 5th round or going undrafted. Seems like you could maybe get a nice discount on a guy who could be a dog in the slot for us and be one of those kind of slot DBs that we love, kind of in the mold of that Kenny Moore. So I'm with you. I think Emmanwori was a big-time winner. It felt like, oh man, Emmanwori kind of a loser coming out of the first round when it seemed like both the combine hype bunnies, him and Mike Green both, did not have the warm reception that a lot of people anticipated, especially Emmanwori with the, I think it ended up being a 9.99 RAS. I don't know if it ended up finishing as a 10, but it was pretty much perfect. Let's just call it what it is. One of the most athletic safeties we've ever seen. A lot of folks thought that he would go first round. NFL said no, but in the same way we look at like 2nd and 3rd round linebackers as guys that we should consider rostering because, again, a devalued position, same thing with safety. So where does he slot in now in terms of rookie drafts? Are we thinking, because at one point we were talking like maybe late 2nd, early 3rd. Is he now firmly in that 3rd round conversation for you in rookie drafts?
I think he is. I think he's around the middle to late 3rd for me. That's usually where I feel comfortable with the safety, or at least the earliest I'd really feel comfortable about a safety, unless I'm getting crazy for whatever reason, like with Kyle Hamilton. But yeah, like for Emmanwori, again, like he has a really strong shot at potential IDP success. Again, with the landing spot and with the draft capital, I plugged him into the model. 8.67 score in the model. So 60% of players that scored at least an 8.5 found top 12 IDP success. 85% found top 24, 90% found top 36. So I love that, especially, for a rookie safety that we can get in the middle to late 3rd round here. I think that's where you start to get a good return on investment for a safety, which not everybody likes to spend up on, but if you're going to do it, you want to do it for a player like that.
One of the few positions I'd say that you could find a starter that late in the draft, as far as starter for their own team and a starter for your IDP rosters as well. So we're not going to be all positive, John. Let's spin negative for a second and talk about a landing spot we weren't crazy about. This was a guy I think that was getting some like LB3-4 buzz in terms of people's rookie linebacker rankings headed into the draft, and got some good capital, but the landing spot we're not crazy about. Demetrius Knight Jr. landing with the Cincinnati Bengals. Why were you not a fan of this one?
Yeah, so to be clear with this one, like I don't like the landing spot as things stand right now, but I do think that this can turn into an elite landing spot, considering that Jermaine Pratt has made a trade request this offseason with Lou Anarumo departing. So if that were to happen, then I would love this spot for Knight. But as things stand right now, we're talking about this on Saturday midday here. The draft is still going on. I don't think he's taking a starting role from Logan Wilson or Jermaine Pratt. So we might have to wait this one out, which isn't necessarily ideal for a player like Demetrius Knight. He's going to be 25 years old come the start of this season. So one of the older prospects in this class, meaning we're more or less banking on, his short-term value for dynasty, which would require a more ideal landing spot, I'd say, where he can start right away. And that's just not the case yet, right? So, an interesting thing with Knight is that, he played for 3 different teams in college: Georgia Tech, Charlotte, South Carolina. He didn't become a full-time starter until year 5 of 6 in college. So he doesn't have as much experience as we'd expect for an older player, but nothing wrong with, 2 years as a starter either. Just somewhat concerning that it took so long to get there. But the other part of this too, with Demetrius Knight making the list, is that the Bengals also drafted Clemson's Barrett Carter today, who is a fine prospect, but it just adds a little bit more company in that linebacker room that could also, but it at the same time could also make the team more comfortable in trading Jermaine Pratt as well. So again, could end up being a good thing for Knight, but again, as we record this on Saturday, it's not ideal right now.
I was going to say, I think if we were recording this next Saturday, I think Demetrius Knight would be in the best category, because the Barrett Carter in the first 4 rounds, 2 linebackers inside the first 4 rounds, when you would not call this a position of need, tells me, I'm not in the Bengals war room, I'm not the Bengals GM, but it tells me, looking at it from the outside, the Bengals are ready to move on from Jermaine Pratt, and I would not be surprised if that trade happens as soon as the end of today, tomorrow, sometime next week. With that request already being made known, with someone like Knight, like you said, he is fully baked. This dude is almost as old as I am coming into the NFL, so he should be ready to go. Like, I see him, this was the kind of advantage for year 1 production with Jared Verse, even though you maybe knock him a tiny bit in Dynasty because he was an older prospect coming out compared to especially Dallas Turner, who I think was 21 at the time. Demetrius Knight, coming in, having played for a while in college football, going to be an older prospect. Maybe that dings him a little bit in Dynasty, so maybe he's like a 4th or 5th round pick in your rookie drafts. But for year 1 production, if Jermaine Pratt is out of there, suddenly this is a potential like top 36, top 40 kind of linebacker for 2025.
Yeah, if Jermaine Pratt's out of there, that makes a huge difference, and yeah, would definitely vault him kind of up the rankings as well, especially for maybe even the next couple years, right? So he'd be somebody that we'd probably be spending a late 2nd, early 3rd on, depending on what our scoring is in rookie drafts, like tackle heavy leagues especially. So the Bengals do, they're still likely to be a 2 linebacker system there, because I don't expect a major shift in their scheme. So yeah, if Jermaine Pratt gets traded, I feel like Demetrius Knight is a good next man up to kind of target here. So still somebody worth drafting in rookie drafts because of that potential. Even if it doesn't happen right away, like they're again requesting a trade. How often do players usually stick around after doing that, right? I mean, unless it's Myles Garrett who they threw the bag at. So Jermaine Pratt is not on that level.
Yeah, a little bit different category. I think the Bengals would be more than happy to just say, hit the trail, Jermaine Pratt. We're tired of your crap. And just again, that is a big investment at linebacker. So that, I think the writing is on the wall, and that's my bold prediction. Like I said, like John said, we're sitting here recording this Saturday afternoon. Would not be surprised if within a couple days of posting this, Jermaine Pratt is somewhere else, and I would put money that it will be the Indianapolis Colts, making the trade with Lou Anarumo and Jalen Carlees as their LB2 at the moment. Who, look, I love Carlees. I think he's a nice little, under the radar kind of possibility to fill that EJ Speed role, which was profitable last year. But I would also like Jermaine Pratt as an upgrade on Carlees, and keep Carlees in that LB3 role. We'll see how it plays out. But, man, let's switch back to positive. I don't like being negative. I like being positive. The draft is all about optimism and excitement. So, John, we've long talked about getting some of our favorite edge rushers some help. I think of Aiden Hutchinson in Detroit. Can we get Micah Parsons some help in Dallas? DeMarcus Lawrence now in Seattle. They bring back Dante Fowler, because why not? But even though they did not go edge rusher in round 1, choosing instead to address the offensive line, they did go edge rusher later in the draft, choosing, I know Mike Wollert is a big fan. Donovan Ezeiruaku is the pick there for Dallas to play opposite Micah Parsons. So what did you like? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but why were you a fan of this landing spot for Ezeiruaku?
Yeah, I mean, opportunity obviously is the big one, right? Like the Cowboys have been bleeding off players at the position seemingly over the last 2 seasons since Dan Quinn left, like DeMarcus Lawrence, Chauncey Golston, who played like nearly 800 defensive snaps for them last year. He went to the Giants. So they were kind of down to like Sam Williams, Dante Fowler, Peyton Turner, Marshawn Nealand, so really kind of average to below average players at the position. They needed to spend at least a day 2 pick here. And they did with Ezeiruaku, who a lot of people liked in the first round. I wasn't quite there with him, but definitely feel better about him as a second rounder. He had a great breakout season in 2024 with a 90.5 pass rush grade, 60 pressures, 14 sacks. Also really experienced as well. He's played over 2,000 defensive snaps in his 4-year Boston College career. So at 21 years old, like that breakout 2024 season is kind of the key for him, because, you know, his career numbers as a whole, like despite the 2024 breakout, they're not exceptional. He's like 68th percentile career pass rush grade, 42nd percentile win rate, 51st percentile pressure rate, but 93rd percentile run defense grade. So as nice as the 2024 season is, the career numbers are typically more predictive for NFL purposes. So but the nice thing, if his 2024 season is kind of truly a sign of things to come for him as a pass rusher, he could be in for a lot of snaps in Dallas on both early downs and passing downs, not unlike that near 800 snap Chauncey Golston last season, and put him in play as a starting IDP, which is obviously what we want here. And volume is going to be the biggest key. And then what he does with that volume is going to be after that. And I think he is capable of kind of getting there. So like the spot for him quite a bit in Dallas.
It's one of those times when maybe the prospect isn't perfect, it isn't clean, but like we talked about with James Pearce Jr., lands in just a primo situation. You look at like opposite. It's so funny, and maybe it's just because these teams, well, Dallas hasn't done it yet. They need to get their act together and get Micah Parsons paid. But I think it's because a lot of these guys have been invested in, but it's kind of been a theme with a lot of these top tier edge rushers that you don't see that really talented second banana opposite them. You know, Nick Bosa got some reinforcements with Michael Williams coming over in the first round. Myles Garrett, we're still waiting on that second edge rusher to emerge opposite Myles Garrett. Micah Parsons, like you said, it's been a revolving. When you're playing Chauncey Golston, that many snaps, like that is grim. And some of the options behind him, not great as well. So I love this guy and the next guy we're going to talk about. Again, not because the profiles were pristine, but even at edge rusher, where opportunity is less important because if guys are super efficient, they can land a sack and save your week. If you start them in one of your edge spots or defensive end spots, volume is still important. You want to get as many bites at the apple as you can with the guys that you're putting into your lineup. And so it was nice just to see Ezeiruaku land in a spot opposite a prolific edge rusher in Micah Parsons, who, despite the contract weirdness, I don't think is going anywhere. So yeah, I was a fan of this pick, and there were some edge rushers I think that landed in less than optimal situations, guys that I'm not necessarily going to be targeting. But Ezeiruaku, I think now is probably in play 3rd, 4th round of rookie drafts.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I think, for some of the other options that are going to be in that range, we're likely looking at day 3 offensive prospects, which are a low success rate. And some of these earlier bets for IDP. So I definitely like that, that kind of range for him.
Yeah, we've had this conversation, John, on our show about like we're in a league together, 5 rounds, 12 teams, 60 rookies selected. And we've kind of wondered last year, there were 40 offensive players taken and 20 defensive players taken. We said this year, could you see something like 45-15? Because it feels like there are so many, especially running backs, that are going to be pushed up the board, because the league's in kind of the fantasy football in particular is kind of in a weird spot right now with running back. I've been looking at some trade targets. I've got 105, and it's like there's not a lot of guys I feel great sending this pick out for. And so I think that's going to push a lot of offensive talent up the board. Mm-hmm. So as you're approaching your rookie drafts in that 3rd, 4th round, where it's like, well, I could take a day 3 running back or a wide receiver that's 4th on the depth chart for his own team, or I could take a guy who could be the starting edge opposite Micah Parsons, getting 60-70% of snaps potentially. I don't know. That feels like a pretty good bet to make.
Yeah, I think you do, right? Like, I think for edge rusher specifically, right? Because it's more of that, like it fits more of that kind of lottery ticket bill where if it hits, it could hit really well and be a top scorer for you on a weekly basis. Where, yeah, like if you're doing it for like a safety that maybe, it didn't get great draft capital or is kind of a crowded situation, for example, maybe doesn't make as much sense. But I think you can make that bet at edge rusher and in some of those more premium positions. And then that's why we see a lot of these offensive players still get taken, from even though they're day 3 prospects, they're still getting taken quite a bit, 4th, 5th round, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely fine with going Ezeiruaku here round 4.
I am proud to announce that Fast Draft now has an all defense game called D Up. That's right, fans of IDP finally have a real money best ball game that they can play. No more manually setting up leagues every time you want to do a draft. No. Now you can play for 10 grand, 2,000 to first. Could draft up to 30 teams, all defense. And the best part, balanced scoring, tackles for loss, pass breakups. It all factors in. Just draft 6 defensive players, top 4 into your lineup every week. It's that easy. It's so easy that this isn't just for IDP people. If you love the NFL, then you'll love this game. And for the first time with Fast Draft, you can sweat both sides of the ball on Sunday. So use your host's promo code to get a $25 deposit match, and you'll love this D-Up contest because it's about time we got one.
There are certain teams, John, in the NFL that we look back at the end of their draft and say, the Eagles have done it again. The Ravens have done it again. There are just certain teams that seem to consistently, year over year, despite picking later in the draft, typically they sit pat and they end up grabbing some outrageous value that is falling to them. I mean, we saw it last year with the Eagles being able to scoop up Cooper DeJean, not even in the first round, right? We see this all the time with the Ravens landing these guys late in drafts. And, John, they did it again, landing Mike Green, edge rusher, out of Marshall. This was a guy commonly, I was mocking him to the Colts in the middle of round 1. I think what you saw here was both a little bit overinflation post-combine, post-Senior Bowl with Mike Green, but also more than that, I think the character concerns knocked him down the board. I think if he had a more pristine off-the-field profile, this guy probably goes somewhere in the middle of round 1, but instead the Ravens sit pat and take him in the 2nd round. So Mike Green goes into a barren edge rushing room. We've long wanted the Ravens to just get a premium edge rusher in the draft instead of signing 65-year-old Kyle Van Noy, which, look, we love Kyle Van Noy, but let's get some young blood in the edge rushing room, Baltimore. They finally did it. Speak on Mike Green as a good landing spot for IDP.
Yeah, it's a good landing spot, and it's a first-round talent, like you said, that fell to the 2nd round because, I think 2 sexual assault allegations against him. Obviously, those are red flags and make sense why teams did not feel comfortable taking him in the 1st round. But day 2 is still a spot to bet on the talent, and he's come out and said they're false allegations, which who knows? I'm sure the Ravens have done some work there as well. But as a player alone, like he boasts some really, really strong metrics all around, including 88th percentile career pass rush grade coming out of college, 87th percentile career win rate, 86th percentile career pressure rate, 81st percentile career quick pressure rate, and 99th percentile career run defense grade. So he has both a 90 plus career pass rush grade and a 90 plus career run defensive grade. Typically, players of his caliber are drafted early with those marks and are going in the 1st round because there's only actually been 4 others to do it that are also top prospects since 2016 who scored 90 plus pass rush and run defense grades for their career. That's Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, Aiden Hutchinson, and Will Anderson. All very good company to be a part of, obviously. So he lands with the Ravens now, which, I mean, he's going to be pushing for playing time as long as he stays out of trouble. It's Kyle Van Noy, who, like you said, is turning 65 years old this year. No, I think 35, but 35, man, that's old now at this point for an NFL player. And then Odafe Owe, who he's developing nicely. He's a former 1st round pick. I don't hate Owe, but like the other guys around him, David Ojabo, Tavius Robinson, those aren't scaring me for potential. I think Green can be much better when he's on the field and kind of someone to consider, I think, in rookie drafts as well, especially when you consider everything about his on-field profile. Like, he scored an 8.58 in my prospect model with this new draft capital. So about a 38% success rate for top 12 at the position, 71% for top 24, and 81% for top 36. So strong odds that he's a weekly starter for us in non-shallow formats. And I'll bet on that in rookie drafts. It'll just be, up to him to not F it up.
This is the recipe for a smash in rookie drafts. A guy that was commonly looked at as a first-round talent drops to the second round for understandable reasons, lands in a very soft room, and lands with a fantastic team, fantastic defense, and just opportunity galore. It's like, yeah, Kyle Van Noy, 35. Brother, I'm 37, and trust me when I say you are feeling every one of those 35 years. That back has got to be aching. Those knees have got to be getting iced on the regular. So Kyle Van Noy will cling to that ship as it sinks into the ocean, but this feels like if Mike Green, again, James Pearce, we had the same kind of concerns, and so it really is, I think, as an IDP manager, what's your risk tolerance? Because there is some significant risk attached to both of these guys, that they are knuckleheads who do not figure it out and wash out of the league within 3 or 4 years, despite the talent and the capital invested in them. So that, I think, is my biggest concern for Mike Green is, can this guy get it together as a professional? And even though I don't want to say joke about it, but it's kind of one of those intangible things that's hard to define. So we don't often talk about it. It is a concern because, you can have all the talent in the world, and if you can't stay on the field and stay out of trouble, you're going to end up like who was it? The guy that James Pearce was comped to, Randy Gregory,
Sure.
Right? Those kind of Greg Hardy was the guy. I think is doing MMA now, right? Like, we once held these sort of dreams in our head of what those guys could be, and it was derailed. So I'm with you. I'm willing to take the shot. Both of these guys, I think, honestly, all three of the edge rushers we've talked about now, because of the opportunity, because of the draft capital, because of the landing spot, are going to be in that third, fourth round consideration. And yeah, would not be surprised. I mean, would you be surprised if Mike Green led that team in edge rushing snaps in 2025?
In 2025,
you still think it's Van Noy or Owe?
Yeah, I think Owe probably still the best bet, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised. Like, you mentioned, like, with character concerns and stuff like that, it does help to go to a team with a stable and coaching staff that could kind of handle a lot of those things, like a Baltimore, for example, with Harbaugh, and maybe Pittsburgh or Detroit, like guys that have that can get through to hopefully these younger guys that are having these kind of issues. So yeah, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he led the group in edge snaps, but I'd be less surprised if he led them in production too, even if he isn't the leader in snaps, right? He's just, I think, that good coming out of college. So yeah, excited to see what he can do for sure in year one.
It's kind of like a Latu situation in my mind, where it's like, I think this guy is the best edge rusher already on this team, but it could be one of those situations where we don't see as much of him as we would like, because there are capable veterans ahead of him. And because they didn't spend a top 3 or 4 pick on this guy, which those guys tend to get on the field. Abdul Carter, we'll see. Not crazy about that landing spot, by the way, unless they do move on from Kayvon Thibodeau, which it doesn't sound like they are. And I don't blame them. If I were the Giants, I'd keep all 3 of those guys too. Yep. But yeah, I'm going to temper expectations with a few exceptions. Like, I think if you want to get fired up about Jalen Walker or James Pearce there in Atlanta, I don't think Arnold Ebiketie or Braylon Trice are keeping these guys off the field. So, but for the most part, I'm just going to assume, until proven otherwise, that the veterans on these teams are going to be the ones getting the majority of snaps, at least early on, because they're professionals, they know the defense, they've been in the building, they're trustworthy, so on and so forth. So let's move on, though, to a landing spot that we weren't crazy about here. And we're going to go to safety Jonas Sanker, landing with the New Orleans Saints. This is a guy that, John, I'll be honest, I am not super familiar with. Now, when you have these guys, you brought the list today. You had some expectations attached to Jonas Sanker, I think, if you are bringing him forth as a bad landing spot, because if it's a player you're not excited about and they land in a room, you're not going to be disappointed, right? There's no expectations there. So obviously you were holding a little candle here for Sanker, lands in New Orleans. Why are you not a fan of this?
Yeah, I really like Jonas Sanker out of Virginia here. Like, he was one of those guys that I kind of had circled for like a good IDP landing spot, thinking he'd go day 3. But he actually goes earlier than expected on day 2, which normally I'd be really excited about. But the Saints is the landing spot. So they have 2 quality NFL starters in place right now with Tyrann Mathieu, and they brought in Justin Reed this offseason as well, right? So really, it's just about not loving the opportunity to contribute right away for Sanker, barring an injury. Even though I loved his IDP potential heading into the draft, because he's kind of this clear box heavy safety archetype who could put up like strong tackle numbers. I just worry that we're going to have to wait for that to come to fruition, like if at all. So we might not see Sanker pay dividends for IDP until like year 3 of his NFL career, which is honestly, it's a typical path for a lot of round 3 or later guys who do find success. You think about Nick Cross and Kirby Joseph, Julian Blackmon, hopefully Jordan Battle this season. Like, it could be a very similar path for Sanker. So I don't love spending a rookie pick on that, barring like, a 7-round draft, I guess, especially at the DB position, which doesn't carry as much as that kind of lottery ticket value as other positions. So that's why he made the list for me. I was a fan of his kind of coming out, thought maybe, day 3, a good landing spot. This could be kind of the IDP safety that we like to target in that range, but a little bit more of a crowded room than I would have hoped for Sanker.
Yeah, I don't like landing there. My least favorite archetype in terms of like rookie draft targets is like the team just address this in free agency and then bring a guy in who plays the same position. They've got a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion, there in the Honey Badger. And then they bring in Justin Reed, who we like a lot. We've always been Justin Reed stands here in this shack. So yeah, this is a situation for me, John, where it feels like maybe if you have a taxi squad, or maybe you just put a star next to this guy's name and pick him up. If you think year 3 might be the year he gets the opportunity, maybe you pick him up sometime during his second season and stash him at the end of your bench, hoping maybe you've got something cooking in year 3. But yeah, this is not a guy that I think we'll be targeting now in rookie drafts if we were going to before. I think typically in most 5-round IDP and offensive rookie drafts, you typically see 3 to 4, maybe 5 safeties go. If it's a particularly strong safety class, mix in maybe a couple cornerbacks. So doesn't feel like that's going to be the case here with Sanker. And I can understand your rationale as to why he is a loser here post-draft in terms of IDP value. But let's switch to another guy who, kind of like Shaq, I'm not familiar with your game. Nickolas Martin, linebacker, landing with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, we know they have Fred Warner, but Dre Greenlaw out the door over to Denver in free agency. John, are you telling me that Winters is not coming to San Francisco with this pick?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Winters might still be coming. I don't know for sure, but this was always going to be one of like the prime landing spots for a linebacker on day 2. I was going to like almost anyone that went here. I don't love that it was necessarily Martin specifically, who was, I think, projected to go outside of the top 200 players heading into yesterday. But hey, the NFL knows best, right? So we'll see. But yeah, anyways, because of that kind of massive swing in draft capital, he was a big time riser for me in the linebacker prospect model. He moved to like a 7.36 out of 10, was previously like around like a 5.4. So it was like 35th percentile, but now jumps up to like nearly the 80th percentile of past prospects because of the the draft capital invested in him, which is such a big part of these linebackers getting opportunity at the next level. So, for context, linebacker prospects that score between a 7 and 7.5, they have about a 21% success rate to turn into top 12 IDPs, 33% to be top 24, 46% to be top 36. So, it's 1 in 5, 1 in 3, and close to 50-50 at the very least, to be a deep league starter. That's not bad. And when you look at the 49ers depth chart, outside of Fred Warner's right now, it's not one that necessarily strikes fear in Martin's starting potential, with D. Winters essentially being the greatest threat right now. And to be fair, like I said, Winters, you probably still get first crack at the starting job as things stand right now, but that group is super thin, and getting day 2 capital is a big plus for Martin's chances. You look at some of his college numbers coming out like PFF grades, they're not great, and that does push his score down in the model. But he is quick to the ball, so that helps. He ranks 84th percentile in first contact rate since 2018. He's a great job at tackling at or behind the line of scrimmage. He ranked like 94th percentile there. And then overall tackle rate, 84th percentile. Like those are, they're college production numbers, so they're not nearly as reliable or stable as like offense production numbers, but some highlights for him at least, right? And 8.4 relative athletic score, so decent athlete as well. I think really the main thing here, 49ers, a thin linebacker room outside of Fred Warner. D. Winters probably still a decent, sleeper bet for the 2025 season, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Nickolas Martin come in and become a starter there at some point.
Feels like one of those situations where the incumbent could start the season and then can't keep the rookie off the field as the season goes along. A lot of chatter. I listened to a lot of like draft coverage in the lead up to this weekend, and the 49ers were an interesting team for a lot of analysts because it's like this team has lost a lot of talent. They've gone from like 10 to 12 like truly difference-making talents on both sides of the ball down to 5 or 6. So even though we don't look at the 49ers as like a rebuilding team, they're very much in that mode right now of restocking the pantry with younger talent. They've had to let some guys walk because they know that this Brock Purdy extension is on the horizon. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting to me when a team that clearly needs to nail a draft in order to maintain a shot and a hope and an expectation of the playoffs invests in a guy like Nickolas Martin. Seems like maybe you would have wished it was a different linebacker that landed in this room, but this is the IDP landing spots recap. And you're right. One of the softest rooms, ripe for disruption behind Fred Warner.
Yeah, I'm with you. I get what the 49ers are doing. I don't love the players that they chose to put in those roles. Like even Michael Williams on the edge, like again, projects to be more of a long-term project at the position. Nickolas Martin, I think there were better linebacker options as well. So like you said, like for a team that has a Super Bowl window that exists right now, you would think they would be looking for more immediate impact players, guys like, on the edge, James Pearce or Mike Green. And then at linebacker, considering guys like a Demetrius Knight or Carson Schwesinger, things like that. So yeah, it's an interesting direction to go. But again, this is the NFL. They know better than I do. I'm just a guy in a chair over here. So we'll see how it works out for them.
John, you are the guy in the chair. Don't sell yourself short. Sure. Have the Las Vegas Raiders invested in linebackers thus far in the draft? I mean, talk about soft rooms. That was one. Them and the Rams came to mind for me. And we'll talk about the Rams in the quick hitters section. But that room, we had someone asking about JOK being on waivers. Should they drop Devin White to pick up JOK? And I said yes, because JOK is a lottery ticket. I don't know that JOK ever plays football again. Yeah. But if he does, we saw points per game. That dude was on an absolute heater when he was playing last season. And I just refuse to accept that Devin White gets to be a thing in Las Vegas. I am just not doing it. You cannot make me. But have they drafted any linebackers thus far? No.
No, they haven't
Oh my
touched the
gosh.
linebacker position. So
Wow.
yeah, they're sitting there with Devin White and Landon Roberts right now as their two potential starters. After that, it's Amari Burney, Tommy Eichenberg, and Brandon Smith. So they are definitely a prime spot. But we're into round
Right.
6 now? Round 7? Where are we?
Who's left?
Yeah, round 6. There's
nothing left, man. Are they going to dip back into this? Are they the Jermaine Pratt team? You know,
maybe
flipping a
Eric Kendricks or somebody.
Yeah, Kendricks is still. There are some good options. I just can't imagine that Pete Carroll, who coached Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright in the heyday of the Legion of Boom, is going to be content to roll with these two Jags at linebacker. I just do not believe it. You can't make me believe it. I am a little bit bummed about this next guy, John. We're going to do our last worst landing spot, and it is Kevin Winston Jr. Landing in Tennessee. Safety. This was a guy talking about mocking Mike Green to my Colts on the PFF mock draft simulator, which, by the way, best in the game. I mean, that tool is just outrageously good. Myself and my brother Connor, both Colts fans, were lighting that thing up in the weeks leading up to the draft. But yes, Mike Green was often one of my favorite targets to mock to the Colts. Kevin Winston Jr. was often there in the 3rd round. So would have loved if that had happened. Instead, we took a cornerback who was CB 27 with a 6th round grade from Dane Brugler. So Colts are having a bad draft. We're in a full on tank for Arch Manning mode at this point. So, but yes, Kevin Winston Jr. to get back on track here lands with the Tennessee Titans. Little bit of competition got you worried on this one, John?
Yeah, that's kind of what it is, right? Similarly to with Sanker, like I'm with you. I liked Kevin Winston Jr. coming out of Penn State, I guess it was. And yeah, I would have liked the Colts landing spot more than this. I think, the Colts, even JT Tuimoloau or whatever. I'm not a big fan of, but anyways, going to the Tennessee Titans here for Kevin Winston Jr. He did have an injury that kept him out of 2024, but for the most part, he offered a really intriguing profile for IDP. Like he owns the best PFF career run defense grade for his career at 94.3 among over 400 safety prospects since 2018, albeit it's on a smaller sample size, right? 694 total defensive snaps for his career because of that missed time. So it's just one example of where he thrived, but and that alone doesn't translate to potential fantasy success, but he's someone who can line up anywhere and be effective. He also has great size to play around the line of scrimmage, which we would obviously love for IDP. I'm just not nearly as interested in kind of waiting out some of these safety options, where I'll be looking to spend a rookie pick on him maybe. Like I think landing with Tennessee with both Xavier Woods and Amani Hooker there, I know not sexy names for IDP, but names that coaching staffs trust and continue to start. Like he'll likely have to wait his turn before seeing the field. I would have loved if he went somewhere like Miami, who were desperate for safety help. That would have been nice. But when it comes to like kind of our DBs again in rookie drafts, if you don't feel great about their potential to get on the field right away, then you're probably not spending a top 60 rookie pick on them. Again, those first 5 rounds. If you go 7 rounds, sure. But otherwise, I'm looking to take shots kind of elsewhere at more valuable positions. So like Kevin Winston Jr., the player, not in love with this landing spot. We'll see how things shake out. But probably not a top 60 pick for me right now.
How many safeties do you think go in a 5 round? Again, 1 QB. That's our main league. I'm kind of thinking, I'm trying to get a little bit of a head start. I'm like, how are you guys going to be thinking about this rookie draft? How many safeties do you think go? Do you think Watts gets in there along? We know Emmanwori, we know Starks are going to go. Is there a safety 3 that creeps in there in your mind?
I think Watts is safety 3 for me right now, going to the Atlanta Falcons. Like they have, who is it? I think Jordan Fuller, who's, fine. He's started before, but they really need somebody like kind of another difference maker to play with Jesse Bates there. And I think safety was always going to be a position that they addressed. I do believe they were interested in Malachi Starks if they weren't going to go defensive line early, but I think Xavier Watts, I think, is probably the other one. I don't know that there's really anybody else. Maybe Andrew Mukuba for the Eagles. We'll see how their planned usage is for him, because they've been funky with a lot of their current talk about how they're going to use some of these rookies that they brought in. Plus, I'm obviously still a believer in Canadian hero Sidney Brown there. So we'll see what happens with the Philadelphia Eagles. But Makuba's probably the closest for me, I think, to sneak in as well.
I shipped off Sidney Brown for a ham sandwich this offseason. No, I like Sidney Brown. It's just like I'm trying to get some draft capital, and it's like I'll let somebody else hold that dart. Again, I love our lads. They do the Lord's work, but you can't take anything at this point in the offseason as gospel. They actually do have Xavier Watts starting next to Jesse Bates with Jordan Fuller as the safety 2 there. So, I think I agree with you. I think he's going to sneak into these 5-round rookie drafts. And 3 safeties. I think you'll see Jedi Barron go. I think he could sneak into like the 5th round. And then, of course, Travis Hunter, your other cornerback /. So if we're counting him as a DB, 5 DBs, does that sound about right for 5-round draft?
I could live with that. Yep.
Yeah. I don't think any of these other cornerbacks really interest me as far as like Maxwell Hairston, Trey Amos, any of those guys. Just not a good fit for IDP purposes. Not a guy I want to throw, especially in a league like RSO that we play in where you have to give these guys 4-year contracts. Yeah. I don't want to be tied up. I took Cooper DeJean last year, but that was a totally different scenario where I knew he was going to get some kick and punt return juice. Otherwise, no, thank you. I'll just stream it. Thank you, Johnny the Greek.
Yeah. It's such a deep position to spend a top 60 rookie pick on them. Just not worth it. Just wait until after your rookie draft. And if you really want to grab somebody, grab them then. But don't spend a rookie pick.
Don't spend a rookie pick on it. Exactly. So let's wrap up, John. Quick hitters. These are guys that, we don't want to dive into as far as best or worst landing spots, but just some big names, because I think there are several other IDPs that are going to be drafted in rookie drafts. One of those is going to be, again, I know Mike Wohlert was a fan. His LB1 pre-draft Carson Schwesinger lands with his Cleveland Browns. Especially if JOK, who we mentioned earlier, is not going to see the field this year, I think it's probably 50-50. I don't have any inside information, but the fact we have had no updates on JOK and the language that was being used to describe his injury and road to recovery back when it happened really has me concerned. And I think the team spending what essentially is like as close to a 1st-round pick as you can get without it being a 1st-round pick, 33rd overall for Carson Schwesinger out of UCLA. This feels like a pretty good spot. I know you have Jordan Hicks there, right? So you do have that veteran presence, but this feels like a guy who's going to see the field pretty soon in 2025, especially if JOK is not in the mix.
Yeah, especially if JOK is not there. That's the main thing. It does not sound promising for JOK, but love the draft capital here for Carson Schwesinger. He goes into Jim Schwartz's defense, which that defense specifically is not perfect for linebacker production. JOK was a full-time guy there last year before the injury. Jordan Hicks was a full-time guy after the injury, but it was really only just one of them that was full-time. There was other guys that were rotating at that second spot, and I think Schwartz, he probably starts at least by leaning a little bit more on the veterans, through in Schwesinger's career. Like, even if we think they're gross, Jerome Baker, Devin Bush. So don't be surprised if like Schwesinger isn't getting snaps that we hope for right away in his career. But that being said, like the 2nd-round draft capital is about as ideal as we can ask for when it comes to rookie linebackers. So he's a really good bet, I think, to increase his role as the season goes on or into year 2 and push for closer to a full-time role. I just think, we always kind of have to be patient with linebackers for us as dynasty managers. So don't expect, an immediate return on investment. So even if like for Jihad Campbell, for example, like the usage might be a little wonky to start his career, I still think I have Jihad Campbell as LB1 over Schwesinger as far as immediate opportunity goes. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I think with Schwartz, considering the history with those Browns linebackers, it might not be perfect for Schwesinger right away, but still a really nice spot, still really nice capital. He's no worse than LB2 for me.
Much like Nick Emmanwori, a guy who was like, Schwesinger, not in the 1st round. And he wasn't as commonly mocked. He was one of those, don't be surprised if this guy ends up in the 1st round. But one of those guys like Emmanwori where it's like, okay, I was a little bit panicked there for a second, but Schwesinger got the draft capital. I think he goes to a soft room for the long term, like the medium to long term of like not right away day one starter, but not a guy that I think is going to be purely a year 2, year 3 play. He's a guy that I'm going to have like starred in any sort of like redraft league, because if Hicks gets injured, if maybe Hicks is struggling, if this team is not very good, and it's like, let's just roll the young guys out there and see what happens. This could be a team that's starting Shedeur Sanders by like week 6 or something like that. So I think they're going to be in evaluation mode, because I think a turning of the page is coming for Cleveland in a big way in 2026 with Deshaun Watson finally being returned to hell where he belongs. So we mentioned Carson Schwesinger. John, we got to have the Travis Hunter conversation. Sure. We're fired up. This felt like a best case scenario for Travis Hunter, landing with a supremely talented quarterback who, yes, has yet to prove it at a high level consistently in the NFL. But I think there are still many reasons to be optimistic about Trevor Lawrence, most notably because Liam Cohen now is his coach. And we saw what Cohen did last year with the Buccaneers. He lands in a room with Brian Thomas Jr. I think instantly this is a top 3 or 4 wide receiver duo in the entire NFL. I think you can put it up there with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Waddle, and Tyreek, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, J.J., and Addison. I think they are right there in that mix. And Sleeper just announced today, breaking the mold, because I've never seen this, labeling him as both a wide receiver and a DB. John, I think on especially like a platform like that, his stock has gone to the moon now, landing with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It definitely has, right? Like, for all formats, really, like he becomes basically what, like a top 5 pick at the very least, in pretty much every format you can imagine, right? Especially if you're going to be able to plug him in as a defensive back, he's going to get wide receiver production. And I love his opportunity as a wide receiver. I think he's the best wide receiver in this rookie class. And I think going to Jacksonville was a way better situation than what we were expecting it to be. We were thinking it was going to be either Joe Flacco or like a Russell Wilson that he was going to have throwing him the ball. But now it's Trevor Lawrence, which is an upgrade over both of those guys. And then obviously Liam Cohen as well. You figure the Jags, they spent up to make that trade. They gave up a second, a future first to get him as well. Like, even if he's not 100, 90% route share or something like that on offense, if he's around 75%, he should still be elite. He's going to be the type of player that the offense designs touches to, and they're going to get him the ball, where Brian Thomas Jr. can still eat, but Travis Hunter, when he's on the field, is going to be specifically designed to get the ball in his hands. So offensive points should be huge. Whatever he puts up as a defensive back is only going to be a bonus for him. And then the fact that you could plug him in as a defensive back on Sleeper, it just makes it unfair. He's no worse than 102 in all rookie draft formats at this point.
Yeah, you can't, if you're the Jags, you can't overpay for the guy who could be the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL. A guy, generational gets thrown around way too much. Like a generation, folks, is like 20 to 30 years. So you get one of those from the turn of the century to now. So pick your prospect at each position, and that's the only one that gets to be generational. And I would pick Travis Hunter for cornerback for that, because we've never seen a cornerback who can come in and play potentially as a full-time wide receiver. So I agree. I think Adam was asking in our Slack channel, where does Travis Hunter go now in these best ball drafts? And I think you could make a strong case to take him number 1 overall, even in that format, because again, cheat code gets thrown around a lot as well. There have been very few like cheat code players, like Taysom Hill, right? Was kind of a little bit of a cheat code there on certain platforms. Marcus Jones at one point was special teams, offense, defense, coaching, GM, cleaning the stadium after games were over, custodial points, like do it all for the New England Patriots. This is at a level we've never seen before. So as excited and as hyped as you can be for Travis Hunter, I still don't think it's as excited and hyped as you should be. So very exciting. It's a great day for IDP. Great first round of the NFL draft, 15 of the 32 picks. Go defensive. We've got the biggest, most important prospect I mean, of my lifetime, as long as I've been doing this, as long as I've been alive, I can't remember a guy quite like Travis Hunter, and just the swag, dude. The riz this guy has, to use the Gen Z slang. I mean, watching him dance with the band, I loved he yanked the jersey away from one of the Jags legends, kind of playfully, but then hit him with the Heisman. I was like, this dude is so swaggy. Like, I cannot love this guy anymore.
Yeah, he is Lisan Al-Gaib for anybody that's a fan of Dune. Josh, I don't know if you've read the books or watched the movie, but he is the prophet that has been promised to us here as somebody that is going to give us offensive points in a defensive position. It is just massive for IDP.
Not seen the movies, not read the books, but seen the memes. So I feel like, in a way, I've gotten the best of Dune. So let's wrap up here, John. We have a ton of stuff coming up at the IDP show. I know you're cooking as well with PFF. Got the fantasy football podcast over there. Got some articles coming up. Let the folks know what you're excited about that they can look forward to.
Yeah, so for this week, coming up here, post NFL draft, there's going to be a ton of stuff. So I'll have the IDP rookie rankings that'll be out, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday of this week. Then I'll have combined offense plus IDP ranking board there. I'll have one QB and Superflex rookie rankings. I'll have post draft IDP winners and losers on not just rookies but veterans as well. Like 4 podcasts. We're doing a winners losers podcast. We're doing a rookie defensive line rankings podcast. We're doing offense plus IDP rankings podcast. All those kinds of things are all coming out in the next week. So I'm going to be very busy, very tired, but I do it all for the people, and hopefully it helps them with their rookie drafts.
And here's the thing, John, you're never not really tired. So
that's true.
Now you get to at least dig into some actual football content while being as exhausted as we all are at this age with multiple kids. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed over at PFF. Check out the website. Check out John's articles, rankings, the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure you're checking that out over on YouTube, especially. They got your boy looking good now over on the PFF Fantasy Football YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed over there, and make sure you're subscribed to the IDP show. We are going to be cranking this week, the biggest week for us and our website. The IDP show draft kit drops Thursday, May 1st for all paid supporters, $5 a month, $50 for the year. We've got rookie rankings coming from Adam, Scott Soltis, Jason King. You don't want to miss those. We will have mock drafts. Bobo on the 1 QB, and then we have Jace and Evan Ringler tackling a super flex mock draft. So if you're wondering, where are these guys likely to go in your rookie drafts, this should give you some idea. So make sure you check it out, theidpshow.com. Speaking of Jace, this was supposed to be his last episode as host of the IDP After Show. I had to pinch hit for him. So want to say a thank you to Jace for everything that he has done as the host of this show. Brought a touch of class and British charm that is sorely lacking on this side of the pond, especially in this particular state. We are Southern gentlemen, but we cannot bring the charm and sophistication that Jace has brought to this show, as well as the knowledge. And Jace is just such a great guy. It has been an honor to have him as the host of the After Show. But this podcast is in good hands. A familiar face, Jeff Pomazal, will be taking the chair as the host of the After Show moving forward. And the next episode, speaking of rookie drafts, we will be doing a rookie mock draft episode. Superflex tight end premium. Jeff with 5 buddies from the IDP show team will be on that episode doing a live draft. And then if you're in a 1 QB league, Adam and Bobby will be back on Monday. I'll be in Mexico, but I will be drafting, and they'll be discussing the picks from our 1 QB rookie mock draft episode. You don't want to miss it. It is a fun time of year. The off season is over, folks. It is the on season. Jump on board, PFF, the IDP show. We're going to take care of you. But until next time, y'all take care, and we'll see you soon.
This was the IDP After Show.